Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our virtual panel discussion. My name is Marley Warren. I am the Director of Marketing at Housing Solutions of New York. Today, we are on the Brooklyn stop of our Five Borough Tour, discussing the state of hunger and homelessness in New York City. Housing Solutions of New York has been providing services to New York's most vulnerable for over 20 years. We founded on a simple belief that every New Yorker deserves dignity, safety, and a place to call home. We went from serving in just the Bronx to serving in all five boroughs. Currently, Housing Solution is serving over 7,500 clients a year at 30 sites, as we said, in all five boroughs. And today, we are going to be speaking about Brooklyn. Today, we come together to bridge policy and practice. This panel brings together advocates, system navigators, and government partners to share resources and solutions supporting New Yorkers experiencing housing instability and food insecurity. Understanding the complexities of homelessness and hunger in our communities, we aim to bridge the gap in New York City by bringing together practitioners, policymakers, and community members. We will explore the challenges faced daily by individuals and families. Together, we can uncover actionable solutions to these pressing issues. When we take a look at what specifically is going on in Brooklyn, we see a 12% increase in unsheltered homelessness in surface areas, according to the 2025 HOPE survey. 36% of all families eligible for shelter services come from Brooklyn. Almost 21% of Brooklyn households receive SNAP benefits, higher than the citywide average, almost 19%. Together, we are going to speak about this reality. We are going to talk about the structural, systemic, what the cycle of instability looks like, and homelessness as a crisis in our city, specifically in Brooklyn. Today, we will be welcoming an exceptional um, group of folks who will be discussing on our panel, and we will be moderated by our very own Rosie Martinez. Rosie, I'm going to hand it over to you to get this wonderful and engaging discussion started about the state of hunger and homelessness in Brooklyn. And while we wait for Rosie, I will go ahead and introduce our panel. Our panel will be working with Derrick Mitchell, one of our site directors from Housing Solutions of New York, Sabrina Hargrave, Vice President of Programs at Brooklyn Org, Kerry Flanagan, Executive Vice President, Family and Homeless Services from CAMBA, Matthew Brune, the Chief Operating Officer from our Department of Social Services, and Nora Daniel, Chief of Staff from the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. We welcome all of our panelists and our moderator. Rosie, I'll let you get us started today.
Thank you, Marley. Good afternoon, everyone. As Marley mentioned, my name is Rosita Martinez, and I'm the Vice Chair at Housing Solutions of New York. I'm glad to be here. I want to first say that thank you for all of our panel guests being here today to have a great conversation focused on the borough of Brooklyn. I first want to introduce our guests, and before we go into the conversation. So why don't we start with Matthew Brune, the Chief Operating Officer at New York City DSS. Then we're going to have Kerry Flanagan from CAMBA, who is the Executive Vice President of Family Homeless Services. Derrick Mitchell, who is from Housing Solutions, a site director. Sabrina Hargrave, who is from Brooklyn Org, Vice President of Programs. And then we also have Nora Daniels from the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, who is the Chief of Staff. Thank you all for being here today. Before we start our conversation, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about the organization, and most importantly, what you want the audience to know about you? Anybody could jump in. This is more of a conversation than a Q&A.
Well, I'm certainly happy to get things underway. Good afternoon. I'm again Matthew Brune, Chief Operating Officer for the New York City's Department of Social Services. And I just want to note and give great thanks to Housing Solutions of New York for organizing this, and thank you for the invitation. So just very quickly, I'm sure Department of Social Services is pretty familiar to most everyone on this call. It's I sort of think of it as the umbrella organization over the Human Resources Administration and the Department of Homeless Services, and that integration took place about 10 years ago. But obviously, the Department of Homeless Services does exactly that, provides shelter and services to unhoused families and singles across New York City to transition them out of the shelters into stable long-term living situations. And on the other side of our house, the Human Resources Administration connects people, singles and families, to benefits like SNAP, Medicaid. We do rental arrears protection payments, home care, Medicaid. It's a big tent of social services. And just briefly about myself, I've been with the agency for almost 25 years. Currently the Chief Operating Officer, but previously I was the Deputy Commissioner for HRA's HIV/AIDS Services Administration, and then at a later point the head of HRA's Family Independence Administration. And a lot of the work I have done then and now involves working with community-based organizations, which I think has always been one of the best aspects of my job, because I started out in nonprofits, so I have a particular affection and reverence for CBOs and nonprofits. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Anybody can jump in.
Well, I will go next. I appreciate that so much, Matthew, since we are a CBO and we definitely need the support as a governmental agencies and DSS to make sure that we're providing the services that we really want to, and the quality of services to the families and the clients that we serve throughout New York City. So my name is Kerry Flanagan. I'm the Executive Vice President of Family and Single Shelter Services at CAMBA. And I also oversee some maternal, infant, and health programs. And we also do have food pantries as well. They're not in my portfolio, but they are definitely a part of CAMBA. So we really, understand the need and the urgency, and really want to make sure we're part of the conversation regarding food and availability and nutrition, and what resources are out there and how we can better be providing them across to our programs and to all of New York City. So thank you, HSNY, for inviting me to be on the panel, and for inviting CAMBA to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you, Kerry.
My name is Mr. Mitchell, Derrick Mitchell. I am a site director in Brooklyn. I have worked with the agency for the past 7 years. I have worked with each demographics: adult families, single adults, families with children. At this time, I deal with the general population as well as the general pop and special population. At this present time, HSNY's mission is basically to stabilize the families and try our best to find solutions with permanent housing. I will be short. All right.
Thank you, Derrick.
I'll I can go next. Nora Daniel. I'm Chief of Staff at Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. I lead our public affairs and programs divisions here at MACHE. MACHE is really focused on system change and moving the criminal justice system, the criminal legal system, towards something that is smaller and safer and fairer. And so we do that through administering programs that really help for people to either remain outside of the criminal legal system and particularly outside of incarceration, and also help people to rebuild their lives if they're leaving incarceration. So that we do that through programs like supervised release, which allow people to go through their cases outside of jail, outside of incarceration, as well as alternatives to incarceration for when a case has ways for cases to wrap up and to resolve in ways that do not wind up incarcerating people. Reentry services, and then also our transitional housing program, which is critical to people's success in when they are justice impacted.
Thank you, Nora. Sabrina?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Sabrina Hargrave. I think I froze on my end, but I still see y'all. I am the Vice President of Programs at Brooklyn Org. Brooklyn Org is a partner and platform for supporting the nonprofit sector here in Brooklyn. So we partner with individual donors, corporations, government, and anything in between to bring critical resources to the nonprofit sector and support them via grants and also capacity building programs. We support organizations across Brooklyn on a variety of issue areas, including housing and health and well-being, which I know we will be talking a little bit more about. Food insecurity, that falls under. So excited to talk more about our unique role in this ecosystem.
Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you, everyone. Before we proceed, I do want to, and my apologies, I do want to acknowledge Liam Down, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Legislative Director for Assembly Member Brian Cunningham, who's here. So want to acknowledge him as well, and he will be giving the remarks before we conclude our webinar. So why don't we proceed into talking about the Brooklyn landscape, right? And this is an open-ended question to all the panelists. From your vantage point, what feels more urgent about homelessness and hunger in Brooklyn right now?
I'm happy to jump in because I've got Brooklyn up top, so I'm gonna take the privilege. I'm gonna take the privilege to do that.
Yeah.
But Brooklyn Org participated and had a public poll last year through the Five Borough Institute. I know we'll be sharing a few of our links, and we will be sharing this towards the end of the call. But in that, it was a public survey following up on issues that were really rising up after listening to our and going to different neighborhoods. Respondents all across Brooklyn had affordable housing programs as their number one thing that they would like to see the city support the most. Brooklyn is kind of at the forefront of this struggle for affordable housing. Our neighborhoods are fundamentally changing, not only in housing composition through City of Yes, through our borough president's initiatives as well, but also just through the change of the city in and of itself. And then understanding the day-to-day shifts that Brooklynites are living under, particularly under this federal administration. So when we talk about food insecurity, you all on the call are experts in what happened in the fall, which was real big changes to SNAP, and that impacted Brooklynites in a really meaningful way, and in a way that philanthropy could not step in just based on the role of government, but also the giving of government, right? The impact was millions of dollars daily to fill that gap. So that's what we have seen in the last few months, just as a big overview.
For me, I would like to say dealing with the special populations, it was a culture shock for them. It was limited resources for them. Even though I work in a non-cooking facility, I noticed that we served the individuals food. However, you notice that it was an increase of like individuals taking more than one plate, trying to deal with the processed food. Some individuals, was trying to adjust to the food. Even though we reached out to vendors to try to make sure that food was accommodating to the individuals, we did see issues and concerns when it came to the food insecurity.
And I just jumping in would like to pick up on something Sabrina said a moment ago about, in particular, the what happened with SNAP in November, where it looked like there was going to be prolonged inaccessibility to SNAP. I think that was a moment that I think embodies a lot of the overall uncertainty that most recipients of public benefits are feeling right now. But I think it also exemplified the agility of the city to meet the moment. I should have noted in my introduction that one of the things I do in my present position is I work very closely with the agency's Community Food Connection, which provides funding to 700 pantries and community kitchens around the city. And overall, there's 1,000 across the city, 700 of which receive funding from Community Food Connection. We were able very quickly, within about a week, to put $15 million into the emergency food system, being mindful that that was not going to, be able to sustain the millions of dollars that were being potentially lost every day if benefits had not, I won't say immediately, but were shortly thereafter ordered to be restored. But it does, I think, evoke some of the uncertainty that people are feeling and are continuing to feel in this present moment. And so I think, and we're also seeing that too in the food space, which of course everything is sort of organically linked. People who on SNAP are categorized as able-bodied adults without dependents, essentially single people, who under the revised federal eligibility rules receive SNAP. We believe we forecasted that potentially 122,000 people who are characterized as ABOD are going to potentially lose benefits over a period of time based on non-compliance, which happens over a period of months if you can't show enough work hours, which are generally, anyway, 80 hours a month. I won't get too in the weeds on that. But for us, we're seeing in Brooklyn, which actually has, I think, among the highest concentration of pantries, we're seeing great demand placed upon them. And as we have for the last few years, particularly, really the upswing started during the pandemic and has never really stopped. So the need is there, and people who are coming, who are utilizing the pantry system, are truly from all walks of life. So working families, people who are retired, people who are unhoused, really just basically all, people who live in New York City who have identified need for food. And I will say, and just in closing, I think it continues to place a premium on the work that the agency is doing with CBOs, particularly through the NYC benefits program, to ensure that as many eligible New Yorkers qualify for a range of benefit, whether it's city, state, or federal benefits, that we're all collectively doing what we can to maximize benefit enrollment.
Yeah. Thank you. Which leads to housing systems and pressure, right? We spoke about the importance of having food stamps, to provide more support for families, for individuals. The cost of living is very high. We're living at the highest inflation since March. So having that extra support in order for our families, single adults and young adults, to be able to, thrive in the community or survive, better yet, is very important. Why don't we go into speaking about housing systems and pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure in terms of addressing the crises now in terms of homelessness and, people getting affordable housing or supportive housing. What pressures are you seeing in emergency, transitional, and affordable housing right now?
For us, as I was speaking before, Mache, we run through partners, emergency transitional housing. Our housing is really meant to be for people who are just leaving jail or prison. And so we do find that because of the volume of people leaving and the need, we are always at a need for beds. Hopefully we will be able to bring more beds online later on this year, but that is always a pressure, as well as the availability of permanent housing for people when they are, after they've gotten a bit on their feet in transitional housing. That continues to be a challenge and a pressure on the overall system and being able to meet that need.
Yeah, for some of our grantees, we also see cultural competency be an issue. So, for example, I visited one of our wonderful grantees that works with survivors of domestic violence. And they often don't want to go to shelters because their languages are not spoken. Had examples of no shower curtains, things of that nature. So, putting in the cultural competency of staff and the spaces themselves as a barrier for people to even want to access the services available to them.
Yeah. And that's very important, cultural competency, but cultural humility. Kerry, you were going to mention, I know CAMBA does a lot of housing from shelters, transitional, permanent, and affordable housing.
Definitely we do. Actually, last year we housed 451 families into permanent housing and 432 singles into permanent housing, right? We actually had, those are some of our great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And honestly, it is all credit to the folks in the sites, the teams on the ground. They make it happen for the families, for the singles. So really kudos to all of them. So we have seen these numbers, right? These impressive numbers of move outs, right? I think the concern is that will it continue, right? We have city perhaps and we have the, employment guidelines, which are very, helpful for families to be able to meet that guideline. And will that sustain, right? I think is always the question. And I think that right now things are, maintaining and we are continuing to be able to move folks out. But I think it's when folks get into the permanent housing, are the services and the resources going to be able to be there for them for long term is really a question that we ask. And we're kind of looking into what we can do more in the aftercare aspect of this, especially with everything that's kind of coming our way. And the other thing I just did kind of want to mention as well is because DSS and DHS made some changes to the food standard regulations, right? Which is good, of course, because it's for nutritional value, right? And obviously we want to make sure folks are eating as healthy and nutritionally as possible. The concern just comes into place is how do we sustain that, right? Like, how is that sustainable for folks, those nutritional guidelines? How do we help people understand, right? Like what it is to maintain and have nutritional meals throughout. And that is really something that we're trying to kind of work on in the shelters individually with folks and then hopefully bring it to the larger space.
Thank you. And Derrick, from your perspective from HSNY?
From my perspective, due to the language barrier and limited resources, I did see it was challenges for the families to find housing due to the special population still having the challenges with the regular general pop. It was challenges. So if they didn't have the proper support to assist them to transition into permanent housing, which the housing market was kind of, limited, I should say, right? So it was a lot of challenges that I faced. However, like I said, with a lot of support through case management, and we were able to assist a lot of families to transition into permanent housing. But I think a lot of lack of housing was an issue of concern.
I
Yeah,
also think too, folks should know about Anthos housing, right? Because they're kind of new in the market of housing, and they are really looking to house folks that have higher needs. So it's a good resource that's available.
absolutely. And the more we collaborate with different partners in terms of different populations, we have special pops with serious mental illness, substance use disorder, or HIV. Then we have the general pop, which comes with, city Phelps vouchers and so forth. It's good to collaborate and be able to service our clients to get a decent and dignified home. I want to bring this specifically for MOCJ and DSS, a question on how does MOCJ coordinate with DHS and HPD and nonprofit providers to reduce the recidivism through housing stability? I know it's a fully loaded question, but coordination, like I mentioned, and collaboration is very important when we're working not only in the housing system, but just overall care.
Absolutely. So, we do know that access to housing is a big part of keeping people out of the criminal legal system. And so it's something that we have really doubled down on with our work, working to expand our transitional housing portfolio. I also know that DSS has implemented, and I'll let them speak for themselves, but some of our partners also work with DSS to serve similar populations, and so that's a really important part of the work as well. We also work with HPD to get people to try to get people connected to permanent housing. There's always improvements to be made, and we're always working, and we're working together consistently to try to make those improvements to improve those pipelines.
Thank you. And the other thing I was thinking about as well is, right, the shared voucher that is now out there, definitely talking about cultural competency and making sure that folks have resources that maybe, don't necessarily have the status that they need. And the shared voucher has really made a difference in people's lives, right? So that if we can continue to expand on that, I would love to see that. I know other folks would.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matthew, what about from your perspective from DSS in terms of coordination and, HPD and in terms of the whole housing instability right now and addressing it?
Yep, thank you. And I just want to answer the question of cultural competency and some families looking at housing and maybe that aspect of it breaking down. I'll definitely take that back to DHS. As a local law, we have local law 73, where we translate, gosh, I can't even remember, 14, 15 into 14, 15, 16 different languages, forms that need to be filled out. But being mindful, it's different than being out in the community trying to locate an apartment and having a language barrier. So that's helpful to hear. Thank you. And then we, just broadly speaking, work with all our city agency partners, MOCJ, for example. We work very closely with HPD on attempting to cite affordable housing projects. For example, and affordable housing projects, I'm sure, as we all know, do take some time to stand up and open doors, but I think it's a little more streamlined over time. But for example, among the ongoing work we're doing with HPD is we have a multi-service center in East Harlem, very large space that we worked with HPD to RFP and to select a developer paired with a social service organization to basically renovate what's basically just a huge school, and in the back also put up additional affordable housing. But what I like about projects like that is that they do take some time to bring up, but they're durable, and the work we do with HPD and we help get things cited. We also have a set aside for families and singles transitioning out of DHS, usually a fairly significant percentage that goes to them. And that's only possible through collaborations with agencies like MOCJ, HPD, ACS, as another prominent example of someone we work with very closely. So that's what's top of mind for me.
Okay. Thank you. And all this is very important in terms of collaboration, building more affordable and permanent housing, also supportive housing, which is for individuals that need more support based on their need, and disability. Why don't we go into speaking about hunger and economic stability? And these questions are open to all of you. How frequently does food insecurity appear alongside of housing instability for individuals and families that we serve in New York City?
Well, I mean, I can get it started. I can't, I can't recite data, but I can certainly speak to what we're seeing. As I said a moment ago, the attendance of people coming to the pantries has grown pretty substantially since the pandemic in 2020. It used to be the pantries would see 15 million folks a year. And I should note that that's a duplicated number. But one of the great strengths of the emergency food system is it's based on a self-identified need of hunger or food insecurity for you and your family. So we track in visits and visits by families. But as I said, that really encompasses all of New York City. But in general, since the pandemic, we've seen 30 million plus visits per year. And in the last full year of data, it was 37.2 million. Now, one could say that that's, a reflection of the pantry system just got frankly better known during the pandemic. But I think it's also notable that those are numbers over time. And we see it evidenced, I think, in our budget. And I won't get in too far into the weeds, but this year we're spending, I think, around 70 million, which is basically we had money added to our food budget over time for the pantry system. But I'm very pleased that, and we're very gratified that Mayor Mamdani in his preliminary budget is basically just wanting to put us at about $70 million a year. So that represents a dramatic increase from where we have generally operated each year. And I think is a reflection of there is a greater demand and need for particularly working families to seek out our pantry system. And, I will just say too, in terms of need, I think New York, we can always do better, but New York City has one of the highest participation rates of basically it's sort of a measurement of who's eligible and who's actually enrolled. And for New York City, I think it's about 95%, which is a great number. I said at an earlier point, I was the head of the Financial Independence Administration, it's like 15 years ago. It was not nearly that high. So it's a really outstanding number, and it contrasts, I think, nationally with about 80% of people who are eligible for SNAP who are participating in SNAP. So it's not just job well done to get to 95%. Part of the ongoing work that we do and we do with our community partners is not only getting people on benefits, but helping them stay qualified and eligible for continuing benefits, because that is certainly one of the greatest disruptions that people can experience who are getting benefits and services is to lose them even temporarily. It can be enormously disruptive and, have a sort of domino effect. I have a lot more to say, but I'm going to pause there because I know others probably have things to say.
Yeah, Matthew, I was going to build upon that with again, we have lots of partners on the ground, and with just a simple example that a lot of them like to tell me, which is people are going to stop paying their rent first, right? They're going to buy food first. So if we're seeing an uptick on pantries and food insecurity, that means, and this co-occurrence of, food insecurity and then housing instability, that means that they are likely to be housing unstable or diving into it really quickly, right? Because, immediate needs versus longer term needs. So I just wanted to put that um, example to you all, because that's what we hear. If the food pantry lines are long and getting longer, then the housing crisis is going to only get bigger next.
And just to piggyback off of that, with the families I serve, they lack limited resources. So we have a non-cooking facility. So like I said, we see an influx of families coming downstairs, um, eating the food or have asking for extra plates, which we provide because once again, they don't have the resources. So the food and they don't get no benefits from the SNAP or from HRA. So a lot of families depend on the food that we serve, which is in-house and we serve to them.
Out of curiosity, why aren't they eligible for, if anecdotally, why they might not be eligible?
The asylum, not all asylum seekers, whether they're undocumented, do not have the documentation.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Which leads to wanting to know more about what does integrated services deliver look like in Brooklyn? Each borough is we have a whole universal ecosystem, but each borough is unique in its service need. How does that look like? And this is more for the CBOs representatives.
Well, I mean, for us, like we've really seen like just being in the communities and making sure that people have the resources and the knowledge of where to get what they need has been really critical. I'm with Matthew. Since the pandemic, I mean, the lines for our food pantry, you can see they're extremely longer, right? You don't even need to know. And so, I don't want to stress this again, but it really does also go back to the quality of food, right? Like we can provide folks in the shelter food pantry stuff, but it really is it what the family actually needs? Is it what a child actually needs nutritionally, right? And so I think it's not just food, but it's also the quality of the food is so important.
Absolutely. And the quality of the food is really important in terms of what, our communities receive and that they're culturally sensitive towards their culture as well. I want to add like fresh fruits and vegetables in the farmers market. It shouldn't be only, a certain subset group that only has access to fresh tomatoes and cucumbers and being able to educate more about the different pyramids of, the food categories. I want to ask this specific question to Nora regarding Mark J. How can community-based organizations like us at Housing Solutions of New York better plug into Mark J led initiatives or the referral process?
So
And
we
plan
are,
along.
yeah. So we are always looking for available partners, even among the ones we're not currently funding. It's always access is always an issue, and so it's something that we are always looking to do. So we're definitely looking forward to continuing the conversation and talking through what that could look like.
Thank you. And now with the whole initiative of closing down Rikers and the new administration, building more specific levels of housing to serve the population, it's much needed in terms of providing the appropriate services for individuals with forensic background and coming out of Rikers as well.
Absolutely. Just to piggyback on that, as we're talking about
Yeah.
things that people need, and you
Mhm.
bringing up forensic, one of the key gaps that we have in terms of serving people is really getting people connected to behavioral health needs and also substance use needs as well. And so that is something that we are looking to try to fix within the overall system, to move the system more towards something that can really address those needs as people have them, because it is a large factor in people's reincarceration as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just mentioned something which is very important, Nora, and the panelists, is that it's not only about housing and providing a home, better yet, to someone. It's also providing the wraparound supportive services or better yet, behavioral health care services, right? Some may need mental health services or substance use, address their substance use, or, just overall care. And I kind of see this many times, the disconnection there about how do people can thrive in the community, not only with having a home, but also the necessary services needed to continue preserving their home and not, lose your home and then go back into the system and start over again. As we kind of wind down, because this is a great conversation, how do we, envision of moving forward? And this is more of a, just going around and want to get everybody's input in terms of how do we reconvene 1 year from now? The mayor had the 100 days. We're, almost in May. What measurables progress would you hope to see more in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I've been so I know that the city just announced an
Mhm.
investment in affordable housing via the pension fund, and that's quite a significant number, right? So really thinking about and holding the city accountable to a year now, what is that plan for Brooklyn? And also, where will it be in Brooklyn? Something that we struggle with in this borough is where the affordable housing is, which neighborhoods, the density, et cetera. So even thinking about the landscape of Brooklyn and really understanding that affordable housing needs to exist across all pockets of the borough, not just concentrated in certain neighborhoods. And what are we doing as a community to hold ourselves accountable? Removing the NIMBYs tone from the area where I live, which is South Brooklyn, right? Which is a huge problem. So I think understanding the greater investment, the impact, and also the distribution, 1 year from now will be really, really critical about that initiative.
Thank you, Sabrina. How about you, Derrick, in terms of like your role at, in our agency, specifically, being a site director out in Brooklyn?
For me, I think we having stronger partnerships and collaborations to assist these families that lack resources, and being able to partner with people that will support these families outside of once they transition into permanent housing, I think will be great because once again, the lack of resources is affecting these families. But once they transition out, they still need that support. So having some type of support once they transition out would be great, assisting these families.
Thank you. And I want to welcome Liam Dow from Assembly Member Brian Cunningham's office, District 43. Thank you, Liam. Before we go into, the closing remarks, I also want to address our workforce, right? Workforce is very important, and I know we're all trying to fill in all our vacant positions because that impacts services. If we can't find social workers, case managers, nurses, to be able to provide those services, then, our clients, the community is impacted in terms of services. So the workforce of, filling these positions with the appropriate individuals and everything that comes with it is necessary to continue doing the work that we do for our clients and tenants. With that being said, Liam, do you want to say some words in terms of the whole aspect of Brooklyn, in terms of hunger and instability of housing, and how we can, collaborate, work together more, and address these ongoing issues, specifically in Brooklyn, and how we can address them?
Yeah, thank you. First off, thank you to HSNY for having me today and for inviting the Assembly member. He sends his regrets for not being able to attend himself. But in terms of the work that our office is doing, we're particularly focused on the issue of affordable housing and what actually qualifies as affordable housing. Particular issue we talk a lot about is AMI. Currently in New York City, the AMI is about 116,000. In our district in Central Brooklyn, it's 86,000. That means the average family in our district cannot afford to live in affordable housing that is 80% or 70% of the local AMI. And this is really transforming communities. It's pushing longtime residents out of the neighborhoods that they grew up in, the roots that they have laid down. And the Assembly member talks about it quite often. The hardest decision, he's going to have to face in the future is, him and his family want to purchase a home, but starting home in Brooklyn, and especially in our district, is over $1 million. That is not affordable to millions of New Yorkers. And we need to continue to build out more housing stock. We've been working on the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act to try and bring more affordable housing into Brooklyn and allow our houses of worship to develop. In terms of food insecurity, the federal government has been attacking people's public benefits, and we need to ensure that our most vulnerable New Yorkers are able to keep qualifying for benefits and receiving them. Without those benefits, many will go hungry. And in a city like New York, or a state like New York, and a city like New York City, that's something that is unacceptable. And I'm happy to see the partners from Brooklyn Org and from CAMBA and the New York City Mayor's Office as well. And we'll continue to work in partnership with all of you to create a stronger and better Brooklyn.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you to Assemblymember Brian Cunningham. And I want to add to what you said, like people should not be moving out of their neighborhoods or leaving their homes because they're being priced out. There's been generations there that have settled their roots, want to continue living in their neighborhood with people who they are familiar. And the unfortunate reality is that they're being priced out and being pushed into other areas outside of New York City and having to leave their roots there, which shouldn't be the case. People should continue living in the neighborhoods that they grew up, where their family came and settled roots, and be able to continue their generations of individuals living in those communities and contributing to their communities as well. So thank you so much, Liam, for actually mentioning that, because that is actually happening. With that being said, before we, wrap up, I would like to just open the forum for any last words from any of you to give to our, audience members in regards to, the Borough of Brooklyn, what can we do, and how we can collaborate more, and some words of wisdom there.
Well, I just would like, again, to acknowledge, the work of community-based organizations and not-for-profits, but in particular, a program that DS has launched that sort of formalized some of the work that we've always done with CBOs, which is NYC Benefits, which is currently funding 36 CBOs to do basically support enrollment and case management with people in the community to qualify them and work with them through the enrollment process for benefits, whether it's HRA, other city agencies like SCREE or DREE through Department of Finance, basically, free direct place. Other housing benefits, they're not exclusive to HRA or DHS, federal, state benefits. It's been a highly effective program. And it's one, and I can't take off the 36 programs, but it's certainly listed on our website. I think that is a great example of the ongoing work that we're all doing, particularly in this moment, which I know can be challenging. I think we just need to maximize enrollment where we can with eligible and qualified families and single individuals. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I really think that we need to continue to listen to folks and really listen to what they need, right? I think it's, especially like talking about the different areas in Brooklyn, and it's so true, you know, and what might be good for Brownsville might not be good for Flatbush, right? And we really need to listen to what the community is asking for and the needs are. And I did just want to also share with you guys that, because we were talking about affordable housing and supportive housing, and I mean, and in my 20 plus years in this world, supportive housing has just flourished, right? And I truly believe that it is a key way for us to help end homelessness, right? And provide stability to folks, and to provide those little bit of extra support services and that aftercare, right, that we were kind of talking about as well. And just so you guys are aware, CAMBA is opening a supportive housing building in Clarkson. It's 329 Clarkson Avenue. It's a very large supportive housing building, and there's different categories of eligibility plus some community apartments that are available. We just recently got TCO, so just putting it out there in case anybody, needs a place or wants to refer. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry.
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate that Brooklyn is a really important part of overall system change within the criminal legal system and moving towards a system that can really support people and produce broad public safety. We have a few partners who are opening up sites, transitional housing sites in Brooklyn this year over the next 6 to 9 months. And so we do look forward to being able to support people in that way, and also to work with all of the other stakeholders in the borough to really be able to drill down on the ways that we can help people who are who have behavioral health needs as well as substance use needs, and people just in the criminal legal system overall.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Nora.
I wanted to add, thinking comprehensively about Brooklyn, the importance of convening and speaking across agencies. I know that many housing and food providers do have relationships with each other, and how critical that is to make sure that the sector is moving in lockstep. And that's something that, Brooklyn org can help support and provides via some of our capacity building opportunities and convenings. I also just want to say what is critically important is to think beyond philanthropic and government darlings, even neighborhoods, right? So when we're talking about neighborhoods that are, we say underserved, they're not even on the map of the conversation, right? And really thinking critically about who are we not talking about? And Kerry talked about listening to community, which communities are not even at the table. And I think that that is a really big issue in Brooklyn with neighborhoods that are not represented, affordable housing complexes not being built. So just challenging us to think beyond the typical neighborhoods that we talk about, and typical communities within that.
Thank you,
Just
Sabrina. How about yourself, Derrick, before we, wrap up and open to Q&A?
Like I tell my clients, don't let what you're going through define who you are. I
Yeah.
I, I try to I pray. I just hope that, like I said, the lack of housing, limited resources, those increase. If those increase, we'll be able to transition most of these families out with some education and some resources as far as like with the language barrier. Maybe like I said, the special population will be able to thrive in the community and be part of the New York City and live the dream. All right. So that's my goal.
Thank you. And I really want to thank all of you. Thank you, Matthew from DSS, Sabrina from Brooklyn Org, Nora from Mock J, Kerry from CAMBA, and Derrick, our site director, and Leon from the Assembly District 43, or Brian Cunningham. Want to open it to any questions that, anyone who's hearing this may have for any of the panelists.
Rosie, you're good to go. There's no Q&A from the panelists.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all taking the time to be here, for partnering with Housing Solutions of New York. Thank you for everyone who participated in our webinar this is our final virtual tour focus on Brooklyn.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity as well. Really appreciate it.
Bye,
It
y'all.
was great to meet all the panelists as well.
Before we
Likewise.
jump off, we're going to swing it over to Marley real quick.
Thank you, everyone. This was such an engaging and informative conversation. I hope that everyone in the audience enjoyed it today. As Rosie said, thank you to Rosie for moderating and to everyone for joining the panel today. We want to take a couple moments and let you know about things that are going on at HSNY. One of them is we invite you to listen to our podcast, One Step Away, where we are talking to other folks in the community and in this space, as well as staff, clients, board members, to find out what's going on the ground with the state of homelessness in New York and what we can do as a community to uplift. We release episodes every other Wednesday, so I invite you to follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Coming up, June 25th is our Scene 3 symposium. This will be our 3rd annual Reimagining Affordable Housing and Development. We invite all of you to join us in June for this very informative conversation. If there is anything else about HSNY that you want to know, we invite you to follow along, scan this QR code, and you'll be able to see all of our upcoming events, as well as join our newsletter so that you can stay informed. Again, I really want to thank everyone today for paneling with us, for all of our practitioners, for all of our advocates, for everyone who is sitting in the audience today. I hope that you heard something that you can take away back to your community to uplift those who are in need the most. Find a way to get involved. This is not something that can just end on a screen. After this conversation is over, we need to go back and spread the word, get involved, and uplift those who need our help the most. Thank you, everyone, for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.